Hey, Travis,
Yes, sir.
can you mute all participants from your end?
Yes. Okay. Hey, Brian, can you hear me okay?
Just fine.
I have yet to see Nate log on.
I looked down the participants and I don't see him here yet.
I'm unfortunately not familiar with this presentation. Do you feel comfortable doing it or no?
Oh yeah, if Nate does it surface in the next minute or so, I can certainly take us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can just let me know when to advance the slides then.
Sure.
Oh, there's Nate. Meekum, is that him?
One.
All right, thank you so much.
So what I'll do is I will introduce the evening just briefly, and then I will let him direct you on when to advance the slides.
That sounds fantastic.
And Travis, will Nate be able to unmute himself, or will you have to do that from your end?
Got it.
Have a shape up tonight. That's all I'm saying.
Nate, how are you?
Very well.
Good, good. We'll get started here in a couple of minutes.
Well, according to it is 7 o'clock. So let's get started. And we welcome all of you to our annual PARC grant application workshop. This is not our preferred way to conduct the workshop. We prefer to see your faces, but given the conditions today, we felt this was the safest course to take, and so we thank Travis and Ken for arranging this virtual workshop. And I will let Nate Meekum carry the presentation, and he will hit a few speed bumps along the way to ask questions if they come up. But if not, there is a Q&A at the very end. But he'll take a few pauses to introduce the advisory board and anything else that he feels is appropriate. So without any further ado, Nate Meekum, the show is yours.
Thank you, Brian. Welcome to everyone. We appreciate your attendance tonight and are grateful for your participation and execution of some wonderful programs. We want to say thank you, especially for our recent continuation of this program. We are grateful to all of those who made that possible. So thank you so much. Okay, how do I advance the slides, Travis? Are you going to do that, or is that something you want me to do?
No, I'll take care of that.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, I'm going to try really hard not to read the slides because I know that everybody in this meeting can read. So here's our agenda for tonight, and the goal is that we can just clarify for those of you who are new to our program how this process works, some helpful hints along the way. What is our process for the 2022 session, if you will, our season, and then help you understand what to do once you have successfully been awarded a grant. And like Brian said, jot down your questions as we go along, and when we get to the end, we'll cover all of them, hopefully. Do not be afraid of contacting us. If you think of something tomorrow that you wish you would have asked, please reach out. We will get you the answer as quick as we can. Okay, next slide. Okay, I am especially grateful to work with this group of fine individuals. They give of their time freely. Brian takes the lead, keeps us all in line. We have Karen Shack, Scott Oakleberry, Brandon Smith, Nanette Kuhn, Laurel Shelley, and myself. And I just want to tell all of them thank you for all that they do to keep us going down the middle. All right, next slide. Okay, we've already done this slide right here as well. We've requested your attendance so that everybody is on the same page and has the same likelihood for success in filling out their application. All right, just a quick rundown of the projects that were from the last funding session. The Daughters of the Utah Pioneers, their July 24th celebration, Alpine Community Theater, 2 productions, Friends of the American Fork Library, some of those are continuing from the very first year and continue doing a great job, so thank you. Harrington Center for the Arts, Wasatch Community Dance Theater. Next slide, please. Let's see, Timpanogos Arts, Fox Hollow Golf Course, and an American Fork City. We had a very successful year. A lot of great things going on in our city. So again, thank you for the projects. And all you have to do is look around. It's not like these are few and far between anymore. So again, thank you. Next slide. All right. So quick review for everyone. This park tax exists to provide funding to enhance the quality of our cultural facilities, organizations, recreational facilities, and parks here in American Fork. And with the projects we've been able to do, like I just said, you don't have to look far. These tax funds come from collected tax revenue and then distributed back to American Fork for this specific project. Next slide. we're under obligation by this, the language in our agreement here is that we distribute all of the funds except for 1.5% that we may hold back for administrative costs of how we organize ourselves and get things done. It's not an entitlement program. If you've been awarded in the past, it doesn't guarantee you awarding in the future. Our board exists to provide recommendations to council. Council has the final determination for what we're doing here. And as a side note, just because you fill out an application, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed that your grant is going to be recommended to the council and that the council has to give you something. So all of the applications are reviewed meticulously and we'd review them on their merits. So, okay, next slide. We have 3 categories generally that we look for the grants to be used. For cultural facilities, cultural organizations, and recreational facilities. Next slide. All right, cultural facilities, just for a review of what we determine these to be. They could be a museum, a theater, an art center, a music hall, but remember they have to be publicly owned and operated to receive funding for a cultural facility. Next slide. Again, another helpful hint: as an applicant of a cultural facility, you must provide for perpetual maintenance and financial accountability for all the facilities for which the funding is requested. If you are applying for publicly owned or operated cultural programs under this category, that's not how it works. That does not qualify for a cultural facility. All right, next slide. If your organization is considered a cultural organization, the funds can be provided to a nonprofit organization or an institution having its primary purpose for the advancement of or preservation of natural history, art, music, theater, dance, and anything cultural, including literature, motion picture, or storytelling. Next slide. All right, recreational facilities. Again, the definition is they must be publicly owned and operated. And there's a long list of things that qualify as what we've deemed as recreational facilities. The applicants must provide for the perpetual maintenance and be responsible for the operation and the accountability for all facilities. Next slide. Now remember, if you're applying for a grant under a recreational facility, the program cannot be funded by a recreational facility grant, but they may be used to finance ongoing operating expenses of facilities. Next slide. All right, how do you know if your group's eligible to apply? If you are a cultural facility grant applicant, then you must meet the definition that we just discussed. If you are a cultural organization applicant, you must be a 501c3 nonprofit entity or registered with the state of Utah as a nonprofit corporation with an active status at the time of your application. So make sure the dates line up on your documentation. If they do not line up, that will be considered ineligible. So please make sure that is clearly delineated in your application. And if you are a recreational facility applicant, it must meet the definition as well. All right, next slide. Okay, this is the summary sheet. If you are a cultural facility, you cannot ask for operational expenses. If you are a cultural organization applicant, you cannot ask for capital expenses. And your cultural organization request must be tied to a clear operational budget. So be very diligent in how you delineate this in your application. You cannot include setup costs, surveys, fundraising, any of that kind of thing. And only public facilities can receive facility funding. Those are very important things to remember as you fill out your application. All right, next slide. As a board, we take very seriously the impact in our community. We have been we've been working very hard to make sure the cultural and recreational facilities, as well as the activities surrounding them, are fundamentally located in American Fork. That seems pretty straightforward, but some applications don't see it that way. These cultural organizations, we feel, must have a significant impact in our community. And that's not clearly defined in the policies and procedures, but that's how we interpret the applications, and that's how we recommend them to the city council. All right, next slide. Okay, due to the craziness of the last couple years, this is something we've had to clarify: carry forward funds. Please remember that the city council has to approve all carry forward requests. And generally, the guideline that we give to everyone is that the request will be considered for 1 year only. Council approval is required for the second year, but in reality, council approval is required for all carry forward requests. But 1 year is what we're asking you to consider. Please make a very clear explanation in your application if that's what you're hoping for. And when I mean very clear, I mean crystal, so that there's no doubt as to what you're asking for. Okay, next slide. Okay, now to the fun part about filling out your application. The website contains the application and it's all online. Here are the helpful hints. Prepare your application in a separate document so that you are in control. You can save that document early and often, and you copy and paste it into the application. One set of organizational data for your group. Let's say you are a group that has 6 projects you want to do. You only set up and sorry, not install, but transmit one set of organizational data. But we need a separate application for each project. We don't need to read your same stuff 6 times, but we need the application for each project to be very clear and delineated. It is 100% online. We will not accept any other format than a PDF. If you send a JPEG, if you send a Word document, if you send anything else besides a PDF, I am so sorry, but your application will be considered to be inadequate and incomplete. So everyone take note, PDF only for your file format. If you forget, I will remind you when your application is denied that you did not send in a PDF. We will not format it and we will not do anything with it. So please remember that. Be very clear in communicating the goal of your project, how you plan to achieve it, and even most importantly, how you plan to measure your success. This is critical for us because we're going to come back to you maybe next year and say, well, how did you do? How did you do with your goals? Did you meet them? So that's what we want you to communicate to us. Next slide. Okay, so here's how we're going to go through the year. The next slides are going to detail this a little bit more. We're all here tonight at the workshop. Everyone's going to apply online early. The board will schedule you for presentations if we need to see a presentation from you, which have been very helpful, I'll be honest. A lot of questions get clarified in my mind when we get to hear from you in your presentation. The board then huddles up, engages in some very healthy debate, and we make our recommendations. Once we're all of one mind, we make our recommendations to the city council. City council then votes and makes their final decision. Okay, next slide. This gives you an overall view of how much work we have to do from tonight, which is the 27th of January, until we make recommendations to the city council in the first council meeting in April. So we got a ton to do. Hence, make your application clearly defining your goals and how you're going to do it. The more clear you are, the less questions we're going to have in getting to the final determination. Next slide, please. All right, here is the nitty-gritty. Applications will open tomorrow. So start early and get it in as quickly as you can. We'll close the application window on the 25th. And then we go to work as a board to review them. We'll invite you in. We have 2 nights set apart for applicant presentations, the 16th and 23rd of March. And then the healthy debate begins after that, and we provide our recommendations to council on the 19th. And the council will award the grants to the PARC applicants. And then in July, the city has traditionally been distributing agreements and funding. Now, we have requested quarterly reports, and we are in the process of clearly defining our expectations of what those quarterly reports can be and should be from each of you who are successful in receiving a grant. So pay attention to what is going to be offered to you in the agreement. It will delineate what is required. Next slide, please. All right, so more of this. You've gotten the grant. What do we do now? There will be a contract that the city will provide you. Inside of it, we'll have a use of funds schedule, beginning and end date, audit capability of how you're going to use the funds. And please, please take lots of photos and keep good track of how you're doing on your project, because we're going to ask for them. Keep in mind that you need to be a good steward and take an accounting of what the funds are and report it back to the council at the specified time. Next slide. Okay. One thing I want to mention here is that traditionally, the grant applicants, once the contract is signed, would receive a check from the city. The city is investigating and in the decision process of possibly having fund requests from the applicants in that, hey, I need this much funding on these specific dates for these milestone events. So that is in discussion right now and will be presented to the grant winners at their contract time in July. So special thanks to Camden, who is our liaison, to Sherilyn, who is our legal advisor, to Clark Taylor, who keeps us going down the middle as our council representative, and of course, Mayor Frost for supporting us and listening to our recommendations. All right, I've done all the talking, so now it's everyone else's turn to ask questions. I don't know how that happens in a setting like this, so somebody can, Brian, do you want to chime in and set the table for how we do any questions?
Yes, thank you, Nate. Well done. Travis, if you want to, can you take everybody off mute, and then we'll just let you just voice your question in an orderly fashion if possible, but we'll just let you chime in as questions arise. So Travis, go ahead and do that, and then we'll just field the questions.
Yeah, I will. I believe everybody needs to actually unmute themselves. So if you want to ask a question, then just go ahead and do that.
I wonder if, for order's sake, Brian, if it wouldn't be easier if people just submitted their question via the chat, and then we'd have record of it as well.
Good idea. Either way, I think if you want to do it through chat and then submit that, or if you want to just chime in, take yourself off of mute and then introduce who you are and then pose your question.
John Miller here. I could throw out a question if I could.
John, go ahead.
And we're the new guys on the block here, I still think. No capital expense. Now, does that mean instruments and music? That was my my concern.
John, we have had this is part of the healthy debate that we've engaged in the past. In our last board meeting, this topic actually came up, and we are, as a group, trying to define very clearly what we consider to be a capital expense. We
Okay.
realize that can be viewed differently among organizations similar to ours. So I'm going to have to say, we'll have to get back to you if you want a clear definition. But I would say fill out your application as you would in years past and submit it.
Okay. I've checked around other arts organizations around the country, and most of them are allowing, some instruments for musical groups that need horns and music to play. Second question, when it says application for each project, now on the initial, when you listed the participants of PARC, Wasatch Music Alliance wasn't on there. I don't know if that was just an oversight or just because we're new, but is the project like the Wasatch Music Alliance, or is the project like each entity in that, Wasatch Winds, Wasatch Show Band, or is it every single event we do?
So the organization would be the overarching group. And then let's say you're requesting funding for, I'm just going to toss it out there, a concert series that includes 4 concerts in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your identifiable project. And then you have another project over here, which is a choral group that does concerts that are, I don't know, 4 concerts a year. That would be a project. Does that make sense?
That does. I just want to make sure I need to do a report on every single concert that we do, but we can jump in.
No.
Sounds good.
I think, John, I think to clarify, I think what you need to do is do each of your groups with with what you're requesting within the group.
Right. Okay.
Am I right, everyone?
Yeah, the parent organization, if there's a parent organization that has multiple entities, then the parent organization would submit for the organization information, and then each project would be a separate application. Did I say that right, Laurel? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say is the parent, you submit one financial and then applications individually, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We have a question in the chat. So that's from, let's see. Going to the chat, you see that message? Let's see.
Yeah, if we could put the recreational facilities one back up.
Yes. Caveman Youth Football, please put the recreational facilities on. That's right. Okay, so Jason, you have a question regarding that?
Yeah, so throughout our football season and pre and post season, we rent both Alpine School District facilities and we rent American Fork Park facilities. I wanted to get some clarification around if we put in a grant for the funds for the rentals of those facilities, does that qualify around definition, because those are obviously public facilities and we are most definitely a 501c3. So yeah, I just wanted to, because we've struggled in the past as we've applied. We ran into the capital expenses roadblock from an equipment perspective and a few other scenarios. So wanted to kind of get a niche perspective from the group if possible on how, what's the path forward for us, if any at all, is there.
I think we would have to seek some input from our legal team, Jason, just to make sure we answer you correctly.
Okay.
I see exactly the angle you're taking, and we can get you a clear answer on that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Other questions from the group?
Hey, Travis, can you let Clark back in? He got booted off the meeting.
Yeah, I just let him back in.
Oh, thank you.
And John has a question, everyone. He says, is that the same for rental of school facilities for practice and concerts?
I think we're going to have to seek some input because those are great questions. Let's get them answered for you.
And oftentimes we've looked at, if you are renting facilities, we looked at as more of a program and not a facilities angle. So oftentimes we'll say, is that an operating expense? Because you're leasing something. So sometimes we found a way that is put into the programming side of things, and that may be the way you come at it through the cultural organization. But we've done that on occasion, but we'll get a clear definition of what qualifies for that. Glenn,
Excellent.
do we have a projection of the amount of funds that will be available for this round of funding? How does that compare to prior years? We have not heard from the finance director yet in terms of their estimate of what this could look like. So I've not seen a projection yet, Glenn. But I mean, last year was certainly a big bump, and people have been consuming. You know, people had all that pent up demand, and they've been spending, and that hasn't dropped off. So I'd imagine I'd be surprised if it wasn't on par with this past year. But we'll get a better read once the finance director sends us, you know, some preliminary figures.
Any other questions?
I have one. Are you putting the the slideshow on the PARC tax grant website?
We have done in the past, and I don't see any reason why we can't. It's
Okay, because I probably won't be the one doing it, but they need to have it. So I just was wondering.
Yes, we will be posting the recorded meeting on the YouTube, the city YouTube account, and we'll make sure that you guys have access to all this slide deck.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
More questions? Any parting comments from members of the advisory board?
just another big thank you to everyone for the desire to do good things and make our city a better place. It's evident over the course of the last few years. Like I said in the presentation, just look around. Look around. If you think this is a small thing, look around our city. This is a big deal. So thank you everyone for your hard work.
I would add, as an entity who receives PARC tax, make sure you thank your community for, you know, re-upping this tax so that we can continue to do these good things.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, Brian, I think we've covered all the ground we need to.
No, I appreciate your presentation, Nate, and I want to just reiterate what Nate said about this community-minded advisory board. They're volunteers, and they give up their time, and freely they give up their opinions. And we have some very spirited discussions. By the end of our meetings, we're friends, and we come together. And when we come up with our recommendations to the city council, we're united, and we stick beside each other. So I appreciate these wonderful people that serve. And also on this most recent vote, as Nate alluded to, there were 3 other cities that floated a similar type of park recreation type bond for the first time. And most of those passed with about 2/3 approval from their constituents. Ours at renewal, we passed with about 3/4. And so I think that difference is because people have seen the fruit over the last number of years through these park projects. So I think as we get the placard out there and you see more and more projects and programs that are supported by PARC, I think people are seeing that there is value to what we're doing with this American Fork. So thank you all for voting in favor of renewing the park for another 10 years. And with that, thank you, everybody.
Brian, I have just one more comment.
Pardon?
Can you please be sure to turn in your applications early? Please do not wait until the 25th to turn in all your applications. It would be much easier for the committee and for the board if they came in a lot earlier than the 25th of February. Thank you.
Thank you, Nan. Good reminder. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening. We appreciate all that you do for American Fork. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
We never know how to get off of this thing.
Go down to leave.
I'm
and
glad
the
I'm
right
still
mouse button.
recording.
Oops.
Oops.
Great job. Great job, Travis.
Oh,
Great job,
cheers.
Nate. Great presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Clark, have a great weekend.
Travis,
You
do you
too.
have a list of all the people that have attended the workshop?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you get it
so-
to Nate or fax it over or email it over to me?
Yeah, I'll probably distribute it to Camden and then he'll send that out to
Yeah, give it to
everybody.
Camden
So-
and then have him send it to me.
Yeah, he's far smarter than I am. So.
Oh, I doubt that, but thank you.
Of course. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Cheers.